Welcome to my channel. In 1986, when I started my apprenticeship as a carpenter, one of the things I was taught at college was to make a hawk, basically a board with a handle underneath, and it's used by plasterers, it's used by builders, and I can remember at the time thinking, yeah, this is great, but will I ever need to do it? And do you know what? I still make those hawks to today. I use scraps of timber, just like these, 2 bits of plywood and maybe some roofer's batten, and it's super simple and you can use them and they last for quite a long time if you look after them, but equally they can be discarded, and it's just a great way of not having to buy something like this and store it or forget where you've left it, especially for a carpenter. The reason I'm making this hawk is because I'm doing some sticking, which means that we're actually sticking the plasterboard to the walls using a special bonding compound for sticking plasterboard back to walls. Anyway, so I'm going to get on, make these very simple hawks, take you through the process. You can do it much less elaborate than I'm doing it because you will think this is elaborate. But anyway, see how you get on. So the first job, I'll sort out some timber. I've got some small squares of plywood. These are just being reused. These are 300mm square. Doesn't have to be that. That's just how big we could get them out. I've got a little offcut of MDF which is going to come into play. This is an offcut of a piece of window board, and I need some batten. I've also got a little bit of door lining offcut here which will be perfect for one of the components. Let's break them out. The very first job is make that square. At the moment it's rectangular. Let's make it 25mm square, which is indeed the size of this cutter here. So I'm going to put that through the saw first at 25mm. The next job is make this into a peg or make it round. It's a really simple technique, something I learned at college. This is one of the things that I thought, I'm going to remember that. So basically, if you haven't got an old broom handle lying around, which is the quickest way, just cut yourself a bit off. It's just not very comfortable as a handle if it's square like this. We're just going to knock the corners off. Again on the table saw, you can use a plane if you're careful to knock them off. We're going to take them off at 45 degrees. So I'll slide the table saw round, I'll put my hand underneath, grab the body of the saw, it's quite safe, and I'll pull it up to where it's at 45 degrees on the slider here. I'll lock that off. Now that's locked off. Now I'll just the fence over. I'm going to take it over about 6mm. That will give me enough to take off the edges. All I'm going to do is run it through, turn it round, run it through to make it into sort of like an 8-sided. Then that gives me a more sort of rounded version. You could leave it at this stage like that if you wanted it to, but what we like to do is make it as round as possible. So we'll drill ourselves a hole in this whole piece of MDF here. It's nice and hard, it's got a really hard face to it. So we'll drill this right through. Oh, yeah, I can feel it now. Then what we're doing is we're going to pass this rod basically through there, but first we might have to just ease a little bit more of the sharp edges off of it. We'll just take a little plane And we're going to just take those off. You could even finish it like this if you wanted, but I reckon it's just nice to take it off a little bit more. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then basically we're going to run it through there. It's a little bit on the long side. Let's just shorten that. We need 2 handles because I always make things like this 2 at once because it's not worth making 1. It takes no time at all to make 2, so you may as well make 2 because you get economy of scale. And before anyone says, what do you want to do that for? It takes too long. See, what you're doing here is by banging this through this former effectively, it's making it smoother. And it's giving us a nice rounded handle. So that's what we need to do. We need to make 2 of those now. So we'll just shorten that down. We'll pull it right through. There we go. Now they want to be grip length long. I reckon about 160 millimeters, depending on who's got big hands or not. Make that 160. Want 2 of those. So there are grab handles. Now the next thing we need is something to hold those onto the plywoods. So we'll take this piece of offcut here. That's absolutely perfect. We're going to make a pattress with that in it, which is going to mount onto there. So let's break those into halves. 2 out of that. Want to shorten those a little bit because the actual hawk top is going to be so big, so we want to keep it away from the edges as much as possible. We'll just keep that back 50 mil or 100 from there. So we want 2 of these. And there we go. Just a small amount. And then we're going to drill those out. Take the arises off them as well, just off the sides. Why? Because it's just nicer. Then we'll drill those out as well. Let's drill those out. So there's the pattresses. Now we can just use a spot of glue in here to make this hold. Let's get a spot of glue. So we'll pop a spot of glue in for what it's worth. You don't need a great deal because it's a friction fit, to be fair. So we'll pop a bit of glue in there. Then we're going to tap these home. You know it's going to fit because we went through that former hole first, so. Right, leave those be for a minute. Now we just want to simply attach those to our hawk. You can have them any way you want them. You can have them at 45, you can have them square. It makes no difference whatsoever. Again, we'll put a spot of glue on. Now, we're going to drill through the other side, fix them with a spot of glue. The nails or the screws, you could nail them if you wanted, but the screws will fill up with plaster and they'll be absolutely fine. So, it doesn't have to be anything that accurate. And we want to be on this line here, and obviously inwards of the edges. And we'll pilot those out. Do those together. Save marking it twice. And we'll put a spot of glue on these. Make sure that we're not hanging down too far with the stick. That's perfect. You don't need to glue them if you don't want to. And again, you don't need to be perfect. You can sight them through. Get some screws. You can just screw those on. How's that look? That looks good. Straighten it all up. It's a handy thing to have. And that's your hawk. Let's just finish the other one. We've got it all piloted ready. Let's whack a couple of screws in. Too long, that one. Pop a bit of glue on. There we go. Pop that on the back somewhere. Pop our screws in. Straighten him up. And there we have a couple of hawks. The last job, which is just nice, is to just ease those edges of the hawk as well. Let me see what we're doing there. There we go. We'll just spin those off as well. And that's it. There's a couple of hawks. They'll make our job a lot easier. And you can give them to the plasterer when you're finished. They love a hawk. And it doesn't take long. Now, if you were buying a hawk, it would cost you a tenner, £10, 13 US. I don't know, €1.16 or something like that. And don't ask me about Australian dollars or whatever, because I have no idea about them. They're bamboozling. But there you go, a really nice little device made from scrap wood. Takes no time at all. Where's my trowel? So we'll load that up with adhesive, and then we can do the business.